how do you actually find peace in a chaotic world? Now, if we're talking about chaotic, what I learned most from a lot of these young men that I talk to, hundreds of guys, what do they talk about when they're talking about chaotic world? When they talk about anti-peace, right? Something that is full of high entropy, right? A lot of chaos, messed up things, right? What I found out from a lot of young men and a lot of guys that I talk to, is that the chaotic world they're talking about is themselves trying to adapt to their day-to-day lives. What do I mean by this, right? Because that sounds a little vague. It's how they deal with activities, it's how they deal with responsibilities, it's how they deal with their own emotions, how they deal with the relationships with other human beings, especially with the feminine if they have partners, or perhaps with the family, right? Or perhaps the chaotic world that they're talking about might also be the fact that they feel lonely, the fact that they feel this loneliness, they feel depression, right? They have depression, they have anxiety, they cannot control their emotions, perhaps because of anger, perhaps rage, perhaps because you feel furious every single day and you don't know why. Perhaps you are not able to sleep because of it, and perhaps you have gut issues or back pain, or you feel uncomfortable talking to person, making eye contact. A lot of those can be chaotic, right? A lot of those can be intense pain that a lot of these men are going through, right? Because I went through as well. I have anxiety, sadness, right? Almost to depression, but I thought I had depression, but it's not on like the severe level. I had more anxiety because I have a behavior called OCD, right? Perfectionism. If you have it as well, we can relate to each other. Now, a lot of these men are going through, depression, the inability to sleep, the inability to deal with conflicts with people, especially when we're in relation to someone. We feel like the world is on chaotic mode, right? Let's just strip away and just, besides the point of, war, what's going on right now, we're not like physically there. We're not physically at war. So we don't want to say that chaotic world. So a lot of these men, including myself as well, and probably you too, we're not talking about chaotic world of like what's happening right now outside of our reach, right? Outside, like far more than our arm's length, right? We're talking about ourselves, the chaotic world, ourselves. There's something messed up within ourselves, right? And we are asking ourselves how to actually find true peace, how to find that refugee, that safe spot in the whole chaotic thing that's happening around us. In order for us to know that answer is to look at ourselves, right? Because the external problems that we have, the fact that we cannot deal with conflict, the fact that we cannot deal with relationships, the fact that we cannot deal with any of our schoolwork, academic work, or homework, right? Exams. All those stuff are derived from our inner chaos, inner conflict, right? Just think about it. If we do not have the belief that if I fail this exam, I'm gonna die, like I'm not gonna be able to go to this university, or I'm not gonna be able to work in this place, right? I'm not gonna be able to please my parents. All those beliefs are basically, most of the time that can be like a valid thing, right? But most of those beliefs are just false. Most of those beliefs are just not valid at all. We have to check the validity of it. Let's say we're trying to do an exam and we say to ourselves, oh man, I'm worthless, right? We have that false belief of you're worthless, right? The external problem is not being able to, like, do that exam, right? But the internal problem is much more important, because that's going to affect how we perceive, how we look at that exam, right? How we look at the work that we're doing, the task that we're doing. If we think to ourselves that we're unable to do that, right, what's going to happen? Procrastination. Now again, procrastination, in other words, is just self-abuse, right? Procrastination is just you abusing yourself with the words that are actually not valid. There's some sort of childhood belief that you created, right? Some kind of belief that you created since childhood, that you believed that it was true, right? And let's say one of the examples, because self-abuse, procrastination, perhaps that you don't feel enough, and the reason you don't feel enough is because you didn't earn unconditional love from your mother, let's say, or perhaps your dad back then did not validate you when you were a child. Whatever that is, it's also associated with your inner self, right? That's why I preach this whole thing called healing the inner boy within, healing the boy within, the inner child within. Whatever that childhood experience that you went through is directly correlated with your inner conflict, with your inner self, with your inner misery. That's why the external problems seems way bigger. But little do you know, the things that you have to fix is inside, not outside. Right? We don't feel enough. It's because we don't get unconditional love from our parents, from our caregivers, right? Perhaps your mom was very critical, and then you became a perfectionist like me. Or perhaps your dad passed away fast, so you didn't get validated, and you asked that question of, am I really enough? Do I have what it takes? Do I belong in this world? And because you have that question lingering around you, you will bring that question to everywhere, and you will chase that answer from that question externally. But then you don't want to get into that feeling of being not validated, or you don't want to get into this feeling of being threatened because your mom is critical, and if you procrastinate, let's say, that's why we always connect it to the external problem today, the struggle. Let's say again about the exam, and you procrastinate studying, right? You feel you're not capable, you're not enough. So what do? You procrastinate. Procrastination is self-abuse. So you go out and just numb yourself, right? You numb yourself by scrolling on TikTok, Instagram, watching porn. That's numbing yourself, because you don't want to have that feeling of being not enough, or being not capable enough to do that task, right? That's just an example. And then you procrastinate because of it. If you don't procrastinate, imagine if you don't procrastinate, meaning that you don't have that internal suffering, you don't have that internal conflict that you have between yourself, and you have freedom to just work on whatever you love to do, and you don't have that resistance towards the work, you don't have that resistance towards the exam that you have to study for, because then you're not going to procrastinate because of it, because you don't have any internal suffering. And because you don't have any internal suffering, and then the result, your external problems will just fade away. It will just be washed away like small pebbles of rock or sand being washed away in the ocean, right? By the waves. So how do you actually find true peace within a chaotic world? Now that you understand that childhood can actually affect how you have that inner conflict within yourself, right? Your childhood experiences or childhood trauma, whether your caregivers, right? Whether your mom is critical, like I mentioned before, or your dad passed away soon, or your dad abandoned you, or your dad separated with your mother, that can affect that wounded little boy within you, and you can bring that woundedness into adulthood today, which makes you have this internal conflict between yourself, which creates and forms these false beliefs that can sabotage your life and create the chaotic world that you have right now and that you're suffering from right now. How do we do that? How do we end that suffering? Right? How do we end that inner suffering? If you already watched my previous videos, the only answer to that is to heal yourself. Right? But I'm not going to be very vague in this one. What do I mean by healing ourselves here? I mean, it's similar like my previous videos, but what I mean by healing ourselves here is to become the embodiment, right? To embody something, to become the embodiment of love. Think for a sec there. The embodiment of love. What do I mean by the embodiment of love, right? If you think about love, you search it up, define love. What is love, right? But in my definition of love is when we reflect on the qualities of God. Because I'm going to teach you something that is in a divine way. Like, we approach this in a divine way. If we reflect the qualities of God, what does it mean, right? God forgives. We provide mercy onto each other, to people, right? Because just before I continue this, just think about it, right? If we embody love, if we're the embodiment, if we walk every single day, if we stand up, if we wake up and we think about the love that we want to provide to other people, think about how that's going to have that true peace within us. Humans today, there's too much conflict happening everywhere, right? Too much conflict, too much war is happening. Civil war, right? Civil war is happening right now. In my country as well. It's crazy, right? I don't have to mention the countries, but you already know you already know if you watch the news and all that, politics and all, right? Man, it's just they don't get what the heart is. The heart is just very fragile, the most important organ ever. And we have to heal it. It's very fragile that we can use it to harm people. So in order for us to not create more conflict in the world, to not make this physical world actually more chaotic, right? Not ourselves, not only ourselves, but also with other people as well, is to be the embodiment of love. A lot of people, right? But I'm talking about young men here, because young men in this generation is the one who's supposed to lead, the one who's supposed to lead the system, lead the generations, right? But a lot of young men these days are operating from the boy psychology because they're wounded since childhood. So they don't know how to respond, they don't know how to lead, they don't know how to work with themselves. That's why they have these inner conflict that they're not supposed to have if they have a heart, right? If you have a heart right now, you're not gonna be able, it's gonna prevent you from having this internal conflict anyway. And that's what I want you to experience as well. This is why I do my work, is to help teach you, to help the inner boy within and heal the boy within, so you can stand up as a hero and break generational curses and patterns that you have, right? I want to mention, before we continue, I want to mention that I have a course coming up, link in the description down below. If you want to check it out, go check it out. It's about healing the inner boy within. It's a school community, so when you join, you can talk to me, you can have a chat with me. We will talk personally onto each other, and I will help you solve your day-to-day struggles, whether it be behaviors, right? Whether it be that you're always angry to someone, or you keep on lashing out to someone, or perhaps you're like me, you have this perfectionist behavior, you have OCD, right? And you want to solve that. Or perhaps you have relationship problems where you have attachment issues, the anxious or avoidant one. whatever it is struggles, link in the description down below. Just wait for the upcoming course that I'm creating. It's gonna be crazy, and then you can also have a chat with me one-on-one for free, no charge at all. And the course as well, it's free, no charge at all. Perhaps it's like $1,000, but for you it's free. So click the link down below and go check it out. Now, continuing on that, a lot of men these days are supposed to lead, right? But if they have this inner conflict within themselves, they're not going to be able to lead the feminine. They're not going to be able to lead their children, the wife, right? The family in the future. I'm not in a relationship with anybody right now, but if I were, I want to be able to lead the person like in a healed and grounded and safe and secured way. Of course, right? If you're watching this video, I know for a fact that you also want that as well. You want to be the person, you want to be the leader, you want to be the hero that can lead relationship between your family, between your children, between your wives in a proper and loving way, in a compassionate way, right? And so you have to be conscious of yourself. Be able to spread love, compassion. Be the tangible version of love. Walk around with love, right? You want to walk around with love. If not, then the world is going to end with conflicts. And you're going to have inner conflict every single day that's going to sabotage your life. Again, if you want to go check it out, the course down below, I talk more in depth about this. Link down below. It's called Heal the Boy Within. Join the community where I'm gathering real authentic brothers around, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.